little slits, and the people used to look out through the slits. Any questions on the roundhouse? Yes, sir.
What's that blue car in the roundhouse? The one all the way back 401.
That's another set of cars, just like the red ones over here, for a different train.
Do they do most of your own machine work here, then I take it? And obviously, if you need
Well, we
parts,
have a
you can't
small
just
machine
order
shop
one.
over there, and we have central shops over there. We don't do everything, but we do most of it. I'll get into that just in a little bit when we get over here.
They still use Babbitt bearings, or they move on to do it?
Well, my understanding is these are the older bearings. Because I had a guy here that worked on a railroad, and it's an antique ramp, but they use it as a transportation. And he said they can't use these bearings because of the regulations in their state. You know, they have to have a newer bearing. Now, this is our steam generator. It actually takes up the whole box. You can't open it anymore, and I'll get into why on that in just a minute. But the steam generators, the trains are pretty normally always kept with their original equipment. We have one spare generator. If this generator breaks down, it gets pulled out, sent to our central shops. The spare generator goes in. As soon as it's repaired, the spare comes out, goes back on the shelf, and the original goes back in the train. Now, just about 2 months ago, our government came up with a new wonderful regulation. Anything over 8 foot off the ground, you have to wear a safety vest attached to a cable. So for 40 years, they walked on top of the tender, brought the arm down to put the water in the tender. Now they're not allowed without the safety vest and the cable. Well, that would be, I think, more dangerous than not. So what they developed was they put this safety chain up here, this pad here, because it gets hot. They now stand here because it's lower, and they use about an 8 foot pole to control all this stuff from down here. Government regulations sometimes don't make a lot of sense. In a lot of places, I'm sure it's a great idea. For us, it's not. So now the tenders were pretty much junk when we got them. The only thing good on them were the wheels, or they're also called trucks. So the tenders were rebuilt from the trucks up. This holds 1,637 gallons of water. We use 200 gallons of water each hour. Okay. In the center, there's a tank that holds 664 gallons of number 2 diesel fuel. These trains were originally wood burners down in the jungle of Mexico, and when they were from Tampa Bay, they were converted to diesel. Now, every night, a diesel truck comes in and fills up the train. We use 22 gallons of diesel an hour. I'm sure what you're thinking is, well, 22 gallons of diesel, you have enough for 4 or 5 days to run. Well, we do, but if we ran for 4 or 5 days and then all of a sudden we had a problem getting diesel, the trains would have to sit. So we fill them up every night so that we know we have 4 to 5 days into the future if there would be a problem. When the train gets ready to first come out, one of the first things maintenance does is they come over and do the brake test. Now, there are no brakes on the engine, only brakes on the passenger cars. So if we're not connected to the passenger cars, there are no brakes on the engine and tender. In order to stop, it would be like you taking your car and going from drive to reverse. That's what they do with the Johnson bar, from forward to reverse. Fortunately, that's not done when you're going very fast, so it's not a big deal. After they've hit the test button, they go up into the cab and check the air pressure. As long as it's holding air pressure, we know there's no leaks. They hit the reset and they start to bring the train out. Come over this way. Come right around here. This is our steam-driven air compressor. This is the motor. This is the pump. Pumps the air into that tank for the brakes. Up on top we have the steam dome. The steam dome is where the steam is stored. We normally keep that at 140 pounds. There are two pop-off valves on top. They pop off at 150 pounds. They're designed so that they can't build too much pressure and blow them up. In the old days, if they build up too much pressure, they could blow them up, or if they injected water at the wrong time, they could blow them up. These release, actually, when they first invented pop-off valves, the firemen and engineers used to tie them shut so that they couldn't pop off and they could build more steam. But if and when that thing blew, the fireman was killed, the engineer was killed, and if it was in the roundhouse, half of that building was wiped out. When they blew, they really blew. Now every day we do a pop-off test. Besides, remember I said we have a little tattletale machine that tells when the engineer's over speed. Normally we run about 10 mile an hour. At 11 mile an hour, it registers an overspeed. They get written up. Same thing with a pop-off. They're not allowed to build too much steam and pop off in a stadium. You'll hear we're going to do a pop-off test when we go to leave. You'll hear how loud it is. And you're going to be inside a car protected by a wall. When these things go off, if they would pop off in a station and mom and the kids are there, they would need hearing aids. It would probably destroy half their hearing and scare the living heck out of them. Now we have two of them. Pop-off valves are a mechanical item. A lot of times with steam, things don't expand evenly. Sometimes our valves don't work because they don't expand evenly. They get caught. We take water on them, dump water on them, pull them down, let them expand back again. So we have two of them up there in case one would get jammed up and not want to open. Hopefully the other one would. It's double the safety check. Now on the other side is the whistle. Coming forward, we have our sand dome. Sand is used to sprinkle sand down in front of the wheels when there's ice. We don't use that because ice, the sand is very abrasive on the tires and the rails. We use the same procedure that the Orlando airport uses when they have ice. Now this year we didn't have any. Last year we had it 2 different days, so you never know. Anybody have an idea what the Orlando airport might do? Okay, well if you have an early morning flight and there is ice at the airport, they delay your flight till the sun comes up and melts it off. And it works every time. See, no ice. It's not worth the $5.5–6 million for a de-icer when you only have ice once or twice a year. So they just delay the flight. Now remember I said sand is abrasive to the tires and the rails. This white portion is the tire. It's replaceable. It's a wear area. They do wear out. You can see the groove that's getting in this one right here. Now when they get worn out, they have to take the whole wheel off. They superheat the tire till it expands, and then they have special tools to pull it off. They take the new tire, superheat it, put it back over the wheel, it contracts and holds itself fast around the wheel. Now, about 2 years ago, we had a couple wheels that developed hairline cracks in them. And we can't just go to a steam train parts store and buy parts for these. We had to have them made. They charged us $30,000 for each wheel to make up wheels. So if you're thinking about going into narrow gauge trains, have a big checkbook. Now you can see the wheels have these big clumps of steel back here. Those are actually counterweights for the rods. You can see this one has one rod. It's got a small counterweight. This one has 2 rods, so it's got a bigger counterweight. Now as we come forward, next we have the steam-driven automatic oiler. Before automatic oilers, the train used to run about 2 miles, stop. The fireman would get off. You might have seen pictures of a guy with a oil can with a spout about 2 foot long. It was his job to oil all the wear spots in there. It was called oil around. They would run 2 miles, stop, he would oil around. Run 2 miles, stop, oil around. Very time consuming. So someone got the idea, let's put them up on the running board, let them lean in and oil while we'll just slow down a little bit. Well, they lost some oil cans. Once in a while they'd lose an arm. Once in a while they lost a leg. So in 1867, a black man by the name of Elijah McCoy invented what became the best, most dependable, most reliable steam-driven oiler on the market. It was so good, the engineers refused to use anything else. if their train was in the roundhouse, the engine was in the roundhouse being worked on, and it needed